Welcome to Upskilling during the pandemic. In this workshop, we're going to talk about why upskilling is so important in an economy like ours, how to upskill, and then we'll identify some of the most in-demand skills that you might want to consider to add to your portfolio. I'm going to share my screen so we can get into the presentation. All right. Let's go back to the beginning. So we've started doing this presentation because so many of the folks we're working with are in a place where they need to search for demand and what in-demand skills exist. The economy is very unpredictable right now, but there are lots of skills that are emerging as increasingly important. So we wanted to give you an idea of where to start. I'm just going to hide my view here, and then we'll go on to the next slide. The first step in this process is really seeing where you fit. This is really the research phase where you get a sense of what in-demand skills and in-demand roles intersect with your interests and the skills that you already have. This could be as simple as getting on a job board, searching with really general keywords, or even using no keywords but sorting by date and limiting your search to the most recent 20 days or so. This will help you teach yourself where are jobs opening up in our economy right now, which of these jobs interest me, and then what skills do I need to be competitive for those roles. It's all about the intersection between your interest, your career goals, and what's in demand right now. And you want to keep a list of what skills are associated with the roles that you would be interested in as a way to kind of create a menu for yourself. Oops, I went too far. So basically, once you've created this list of things that you want to upskill on, there's a lot of different ways to upskill. Taking an online course, structured or self-directed, a lot of these are free. I'll get into some sources for those courses in the next slide. You can also volunteer to take a skill-focused project on for a nonprofit or small business. This helps create a sense of accountability around teaching yourself a particular skill. You might design a personal or passion project, something that you'd be interested in pursuing regardless of where you were right now. Or you might want to collaborate with a friend or colleague to really practice the skill that you're building. You might both have the same desire around learning a certain technology and then schedule a weekly meeting where you kind of work on this together. Some great places to start for free access to digital upskilling are professional organizations. A lot of them have been responsive to their members or to people in their community in terms of the shifts in what their skills are. Product webinars, so a lot of the products we'll talk about later, some of the technology tools have webinars because ultimately they want to sell these products. They also often offer free trials or free versions as a way to acclimate new users and to get more customers. LinkedIn Learning is something that's very useful for current DePaul students because that means you have unlimited access to LinkedIn Learning, which actually has a lot of great content, and some of it is as short as an hour-long workshop on search engine optimization to a 12-hour course on Excel, advanced Excel. And if you don't have access to LinkedIn Learning, to be honest, YouTube has been my major source for upskilling. I will Google a product or a tool on YouTube, and I have basically unlimited options in terms of a 15-minute version, a 20-minute version, an hour-long version, an advanced version. There's a lot of great content on YouTube. Coursera, edX, Udemy, those spaces all offer courses, some of which are free, some of which are low cost, some of which cost more like a college credit. So those are good places to look as well. Google has a lot of training available on its products, so that's another source. And then Khan Academy is a nonprofit focused on skill building, so they're also a good place to look. So this list of the top 10 in-demand skills was made by LinkedIn in January 2020. So it's useful to really look at, okay, prior to the pandemic, what was the market? Blockchain is number one. Are you going to upskill on blockchain? Not necessarily. That's a pretty tech savvy space. But cloud computing, number two, this highlights how important it is to be able to talk about your ability to work with tools like Google Suite, Microsoft Office, Microsoft Teams, etc. Data analytics is number three. The pandemic isn't going to change that. artificial intelligence, UX, business analysis, marketing, sales, programming, video production. There's been shifts in some of these spaces, but to be fair, even video production, I think, is a good example of something that we're all increasingly asked to know about, if only because we're trapped at home, we're making things to put out into the market, and having some skills, even a little bit of skills in all these categories, will help you be a better hybridized candidate. So this is the list of 6 in-demand tech skills that we have identified in the Career Center based on the way the economy has shifted during the pandemic. And you can see a lot of these, number 1, number 2, particularly real-time communication tools and project management and collaboration. These are very obviously in response to the way that the world has changed its work. Will we ever go fully back to not using these tools? I don't think so. I think these are here to stay. The others are just in demand because of the way they're increasingly useful technology tools. And like I said, more candidates have to be hybridized. Let me get into what we mean when we talk about real-time communication tools. Essentially, there's a list at the bottom. You can see Slack, Teams, Google Chat, other options. This whole area has emerged to replace some of the communication that happens via email. There's an immediacy. It's more like a chat that has a structure. And we'll get into a sample in a minute. But basically, particularly because we're all working remotely, it's important for us to be able to ask and answer questions with groups, with individuals, very quickly, and to keep that communication more organic rather than structured. In the Career Center, we've been using Slack since this all evolved and we became remote. And so I'll focus on that as my example, but these have a lot in common. Many of them feature the option to do video chat in addition to text chat. And most of these have a free version. We're using the free version in the Career Center right now. So what you can see, this is a screenshot of what the Slack platform looks like. There's a mix of threads, meaning you create a thread called design team or social media or whatever the group is that you're going to be communicating with. And then you can also, and those are actually channels, then you can also direct message, meaning I have a whole list of folks that I'm communicating with, like maybe I have I do have a channel just called advisors. So that's what I have a note for all the advisors. And then when I direct message, I just go directly to those individuals. And you can see that it really does have a visual immediacy that email has not succeeded in delivering yet. It's obviously different though. So there are things that I will send via email versus Slack. But to teach yourself Slack, you could create a free account, have someone else as a partner with you, and use that as a communication tool on a shared project or just on a shared idea even. The free versions of these do have limits in terms of you can only do one-on-one video calls, your archive is limited, but there's enough here for you to kind of teach yourself this tool. And for each of these categories, I'm sending you guys this slide deck, and these YouTube videos will be hyperlinked because I wanted to make sure there was a video introduction so that you could follow up on any of these categories that I'm going to be talking about. So we're not going to watch this now, but when you get the slide deck, you'll be able to click on this link, and it's essentially an introduction to a real-time communication tool. All right, so the number 2, and these are not in order of importance necessarily. They move from kind of most technically or least technically challenging to most technically challenging. Project management is exactly how it sounds. It's a tool to help you track and move steps in a project. What's cool about the tools that are now available to most folks is that they use a more visual approach. So that works, for anybody who's kind of a visual learner. And they also feature notifications and due dates and the ability to assign. And we are currently using the free version of Asana in the Career Center. So that's what I'll show you here. What I love about a project management tool right now is that we're not in each other's offices. We're not having team meetings in person. We have a 30-minute window for some of our meetings. So to move things along, it is important to have a tool that is integrated, essentially giving us notifications and helping us visually see how our progress has moved. So for example, this is our board for the Spring 2020 projects. And you can see on the left-hand column, this is again the free version of Asana. On the left-hand column, you can see all the different teams as well as their separate boards. And the board can be viewed in a wide variety of ways. It can be viewed as a list or by a calendar. The visual board version is always the one that I use first. But essentially what you do is you create a column, you name that column, and the column relates to the stage of the process or even the category of the work you're doing. And then each of these tiles represents a task. And once you're in that tile, you can assign it to a person on the team, you can add a due date, you can hyperlink to a Google Doc, you can integrate, you can hyperlink to a video. It's a really robust tool and it's very easy to learn. You don't need to be part of a team to learn this. So you could actually use this project management board for your job search if you wanted, but you will get more capabilities and more education if maybe you're part of a job search group and you share a board like this. This might help you kind of learn the tool a little bit more. Asana is not the only tool. Basecamp, Mondays, Trello, Rike, these are all tools that you can try out for free. They have a lot in common. I only featured Asana because it's one that I use in my role, but even when you Google Asana, it'll tell you to use Mondays. So there's a lot of competition in this space. Feel free to check them out and see which one is closest to how you would like the interface works for you. Again, this is a YouTube link that you'll be able to click on when I send you guys the slide deck that will introduce you to some of these tools or the boards. All right, so we are moving from low tech to high tech, but what I'll make sure you understand here is there's levels within this category about data analysis and visualization. Things have changed a lot since I first learned Excel. There's a lot of other tools and integrations that help you deliver some of the visualization that you would have to really create manually before. So there are 4 types of data analysis. And these slides are pretty text heavy because when I send you the deck, it'll give you a little more reference. You won't have to necessarily watch the video, which I will also be sending you. We wanted to make it easier for every kind of learner. So the descriptive analysis is really analyzing and summarizing data. Predictive analysis is forecasting, and there are certain roles where that's a really useful skill to have. Diagnostic analysis is really diagnosing problems in the data, figuring out some of those challenges. And then prescriptive analysis is a combination of all of those that then helps a business make a decision. So you could dip into really just making sure you have deep skills in descriptive analysis, which is essentially more than anything an Excel spreadsheet and understanding how to use Excel. This is a good example of the visualization piece, and I'll talk about this tool a little bit. But in the Career Center, we use Tableau to keep an eye on our usage. This is winter utilization. What I love about this is we didn't have to make this. This is Tableau. You basically create a report and then it creates the visualization around that report. And the learning curve on tools like this are much different than they used to be. The lists here that I would consider if you see data analysis or data visualization pop up in roles you're interested in, obviously making sure you have capability in Excel is really important. R is a programming language that some students learn in like psychology courses, etc. That one, you know, not everyone's going to want to upskill in programming necessarily, but if you see it again and again, that is one you would dip into. Tableau is more about reporting, so that one is one that I think is less about programming and more about the actual visualization. SQL, if you see this come up occasionally in the jobs that you might be interested in, there's a lot of ways to teach yourself. It's really just a language that you would use in a database. And that's, again, I'll point you to some resources. Google Charts, in terms of the least investment, Google Charts is very user-friendly and a pretty great entry-level view into a data visualization tool that you could potentially use to make yourself competitive in the job search. Again, this is a YouTube link you'll be able to click on that'll send you to a really introductory video. All right, so web management does not mean creating a website necessarily. There's 2 kinds of web management. We're going to start with the lightest touch and the least tech tech deep one. Content management systems really just refers to a tool that helps you create a website or host it. So for example, Wix and WordPress, those are probably the two most popular ones. Squarespace is one you hear ads for all the time. They don't require you to know HTML in order to create or maintain a website. Why would web management be so important during the pandemic? Essentially, it's because it used to be that you would hire a web designer to do this work. Nowadays, a lot of this function is shared across a lot of roles because these tools are largely drag and drop. Everything we're doing right now is on the internet. I mean, that has grown even more apparent and will not likely shift. Even in my role in higher education, I've had several jobs where part of my job was making a quick change on a website or writing and then placing some content on a website. So I've used Drupal, I've used Squarespace, I've used Wix, I've dipped into WordPress. I've also done a little bit of HTML, but dipping into one of these tools is a really good idea. The reason I have Wix and WordPress underlined is that they're the easiest to get in terms of they're free. Getting into Drupal, you have to be part of an institution that uses it. You could certainly play with Squarespace. Wix is a cheaper investment in terms of you can have a free Wix website if you have ads on it. Squarespace doesn't have a free version. You can build it for free, you just can't publish it. And WordPress is free. You really won't know until you get into them which interface is the easiest for you to use. For most people, Wix is a little bit easier than WordPress, but WordPress is a really good skill to learn. So this is an example of what a WordPress site building would look like. So for example, you can see all the left-hand navigation over there is really, you're clicking into on the top left, site identity is helping you change certain parts of your site. You'd have to click out of site identity to change the content or to change the nav bar. But it is a drag and drop. I mean, it's telling you how to use itself, and Wix and Squarespace and WordPress all have really robust tutorials on their own websites. So you will probably have a preference for one or the other in terms of the interface and the design interface particularly. On the other half of web management, so that was really drag and drop. That was really learning how the tool wants you to move things around, not knowing anything about the back end. If you enjoy that, or if you're seeing HTML show up a couple times as an in-demand skill, it's not as complicated as you might imagine if you're not someone who's already using HTML. And you don't need to be a master of any of these skills to put them on the resume. You just have to have a basic understanding of them. So for example, if you were seeing HTML pop up, and there is the benefit to knowing HTML is it helps you fix mistakes that happen in a content management system. So you could literally manually go in and just do a quick backend fix if it lets you do that. And it will sometimes let you customize depending on what the template is. But this isn't mastery. So for example, this is a free HTML editing site. So I just browsed free HTML editing. And all I did to create the HTML in the left-hand column was I used insert image, and I grabbed an image off of the internet. And then I added the text manually. I just typed in swimming pools, and it created all the HTML on the left. And that's how I personally taught myself HTML. And this was many years ago when this was the only way to learn it. But there's lots of tutorials, but it's helping you see. So like paragraph, or P is open paragraph, strong is bold, swimming pools is the text obviously, \strong means no longer bold, \P is paragraph end. But it helps you kind of see how to generate HTML, and it'll help you learn it if it's one of those things on your list. Again, another YouTube video you guys can go to that's a pretty general introduction. All right. So when I say user experience, people get really stressed out that I'm talking about on the developer side. Like I'm talking about, coding and programming. And I'm not necessarily. There's a whole world of user experience for tech products that is more about the human behavior side versus the actual like programming developer side. And then product management is different from project management in that product management is the role of the person who's helping a team create a tech product or any kind of product. So I'll get into kind of what this upskilling would look like. This is a little bit different in that it's not necessarily teaching yourself a tool, but it's teaching yourself a skill. So let's go into the workflow. So this is just to show you the comparison between a UX and a product manager. So the UX workflow, and this isn't all the stuff that you would necessarily be part of. Information architecture and content inventory, those are not tech skills. Those are really like, there's folks whose jobs are to do some of this research and this work and this writing. Then there's the designers. The prototypers are often the actual developers, but then you move through and there's people who are part of the testing. Being part of the testing doesn't necessarily, that might mean you're a psychology major who has a deep skills in survey design and things like that. And then of course you have the actual visual designer who finishes up all the graphics. In product management, it's, you can see that they're not totally different. There's a discovery mode, but you're also really moving through what's the process of creating a product, identifying the problem, identifying what the solutions are, and then developing it. And a lot of this is getting feedback. A lot of this is project management as well. So I'm going to go into some of the skills that are associated with these two categories. Design thinking is an increasingly popular skill set across every industry. There are folks in education who use design thinking to create curriculum, to create solutions for teaching. But essentially it refers to a very specific process by which design concepts are developed. And again, I'm not talking graphic design, I'm talking about any problem solution scenario. Survey design there are very specific best practices around survey design, and I'm not talking about learning how to use Google Forms. I'm really talking about how to ask the right question, how to choose between a ranked question versus a scored question. All of that is a space you could upskill in. Prototyping is really about how you can test something, how you can create something that is testable. And then usability testing is really how do you test with real users. It relates a little bit to survey design, but it also relates to research and other skills. Finally, journey mapping is really talking about how do we visually represent a customer's experience. These are all skills that don't necessarily require deep tech knowledge as a way to upskill for these roles which are tech adjacent. Even Googling design thinking or Googling best practices survey design is going to get you to some of the content that you can upskill on. And again, these aren't the same thing as learning a technology tool. These are more about training yourself by watching some lectures, reading some material, kind of more of an academic approach to learning some of these skills. Again, I'll be sending you to a YouTube link. I think this one is really just basically intro to design thinking. And then what you can do with any of these skills is practice them with projects that you are currently involved in or that you take on as a way to kind of practice those. Finally, analytics. Again, this is where I caution, this doesn't mean you have to be an analytics expert. This is just adding something to your toolkit. So for example, there's an hour-long LinkedIn Learning video called Intro to SEO or Search Engine Optimization. Essentially, this is learning vocabulary as well as a little bit of technology, but even watching an hour-long video of SEO is going to give you enough of the knowledge you need to be able to think about how this might apply to your job search. Google Analytics is the most dominant web analytics service. So that's something to think about. There's a lot of training in Google Analytics online, some of which is free. Like certification and badging isn't necessary for any of these skills typically. I mean, if there are some things like, there are definitely like Microsoft certifications that certain employers want. But in general, the upskilling we're talking about is really figuring out, is this something I could add to my resume that's going to get my resume through the applicant tracking system? It's less about certification. So I really make sure students think about if they're going to pay for a certification or a badge, really think about, do they need to pay for this, or is this something they could teach themselves enough to add to their application materials? And then Campaign Monitor is one of many email marketing tools that includes a ton of reporting and analytics around clicks and opens. Even a free trial of one of these tools would help you train yourself on those, or even like a couple YouTube videos that really offer tutorials to folks who are using those products. There's really low key ways to kind of start to upskill in some of these categories. Again, you'll have the ability to click on this link and go to like an intro video. The final piece of this, so we talked a little bit about upskilling, and nobody's going to take on all of those skills. You're going to want to match the skills you need to upskill on to your interests and to those intersections. But once you have done that, you want to make sure that these skills get added to your resume and cover letter and LinkedIn. Primarily because 95% of jobs go through an applicant tracking system, and only 30% of those resumes get reviewed, which means that 70% get kicked out of the process because they didn't have the right keywords. And the keywords are often skills, not just technology, but some of the other skills I've talked about. So if you want to figure out whether or not your resume is doing the job it needs to do around an applicant tracking system, there's a new tool called Resume Optimizer. It's offered by MC. This again will be clickable to you, skills.mcdata.com/resume, where you can copy and paste your resume into a window, choose a job that you would potentially use it to apply to, and it will tell you what skills are missing and what skills are viewable. So that's something you want to do. You don't want to just build the skills and not make sure they're represented correctly on all of your application materials. There's a lot of ways we can help you do this. If you even want to just start with a conversation with someone saying, hey, I know I need to upskill. What do you think I need to upskill on? That's something that we're doing with a lot of folks right now. We also have a career library with over 50 handouts and a whole new COVID specific advice section that includes some of this content, but that goes beyond it, as well as like a crowdsourced list of employers who are hiring, as well as employer trends. That's all on our website. We have a new library, career library of videos on YouTube as well. You can find that again on our website in the resources area, in the career library section. But we can also, let me go back. We are available to meet with you to have any kind of career conversation, whether or not it's, I have a major in this, but I don't know how to use it in this current market, or I've applied to 12 jobs and I'm not hearing back. Every kind of career conversation is something we can help you with. So please make an appointment on Handshake. That's our job platform. Again, you can go there on our website. And then we have a bunch more skills labs coming up. As you can see, if you're watching this now, we're sending out a video recording of every single one of these presentations to anyone who RSVPs. So if you're interested, I think next week we are doing a skills presentation on cultural competence, which I'm really excited about. And then later on, we have video marketing, we have remote event planning, all kinds of other in-demand skills that we're going to be presenting on the rest of the summer and probably continuing into fall. So we hope that you come to see us or that you dip into some of the content, and hopefully this presentation was helpful to you. And thank you so much for coming. Bye.